And here we go. Okay, so the general's going to go for Britons. Switch over to Capture Age here. So it looks like Capture Age detected the AI names pretty well here, which is nice. So we've got the shoe for GamesGod, and the general is going Britons. So GamesGod starting with a mill, while the general's grabbing a boar. The boar is hunted there. There's a first lumber camp on a small forest. The general actually kind of has small forests, but 4 of them. Be nice if the lumber camp was around here instead, but I'll take it here. The general tries to go for the drop sites to get them close to the TC. So with its DC drop site code, it starts closer to the TC and then works its way out. So unfortunately, sometimes it can kind of build in a spot where it's like a little snake of a forest goes toward the TC, and it doesn't build the lumber camp near the body of the forest. So something to improve on. In the meantime, we got GamesGod, which still doesn't have a lumber camp, is going for straggler trees instead. We'll see how he plays on the new Civ. Yeah, reading through the chat here, this tournament is only Arabia and Arena, so no water, but there'll be some water in upcoming tournaments, I think. Alright, second board coming for the general. And there's the mill. And I didn't even check if it's chicken Arabia. I think it's deer Arabia. Yes, so got some deer coming in with the general's deer pushing. I don't know if I would say that the general's deer pushing is the most perfect system, but you can tell that it's working a little bit better than soldiers from... I was about to say it was working pretty well, but look at that. That is pretty bad. But I don't know. Except for like the fact that the general should have canceled its hunters from trying to kill it. The actual pushing the deer in toward the TC was better than what we might have seen from soldier earlier today. That just shows the kind of advantage you can get from pushing with precise points instead of by using whole tiles to find the place to send your scout. So the general might be losing a little bit of efficiency there from the deer pushing. We got the GamesGod doing the same. So this technique is actually pretty well known. Most AIs kind of use the same technique for deer pushing. It's not a big science once you figure out how to do it. But we kind of have a similar thing happening with GamesGod. And that's going to be a long deer, unfortunately. So the last deer being pushed in by the general, and GamesGod is doing the second to last deer. Both are pretty... Okay, the general just dropped off a whole bunch of boar, it looks like. And a little bit of idle TC time for the general. But the generals skipped loom while the GamesGod went for loom. So the general should start seeing a little bit of a bonus from like delaying loom, seeing the economy grow. And we're definitely seeing like part of the economy difference from the resources collected just because the general is delaying feudal age to go for a fast castle. So the general should be getting ahead in resources here. We'll see if the game's god can punish the general with the flesh. Catch the general while he is vulnerable. So in theory, the should be going for an archer rush, and GamesGod does have some archer micro, so it'll be nice to see that from GamesGod. We've got a couple houses going up for GamesGod, but he just reached feudal age, but no military buildings yet, unless you count the watchtower or the barracks, but no feudal buildings yet. And the general's on the way to feudal age. It's got a barracks. Now something new that I added to the general is some range micro, so it'll actually hit and run with its archers now. It's sort of in a beta stage at this point. It's not perfect, but it certainly beats not having hit and run macro at all. I took a little bit of my in progress DC code and decided to adopt it to the old DC system that generals had for like the last year or two. So maybe we'll see that in action here. GamesGod Scout is kind of caught in a loop. It looks like it's retreating from the TC, but maybe it keeps on getting sent to go in a certain direction. But anyway, it rescued itself. So we got an archer range and a tower going up for the general. And mostly going for skirmishers so far. We also got an archer for GamesGod. And the general's already starting to make some archers as well. And going up to Castle Age. A third range going down for the general. That's probably a bit aggressive. I don't know if it has enough to be able to maintain production from all three ranges. I think 7 gold miners is enough for 2 archer ranges, but not 3, but it doesn't need to be producing from all 3 ranges quite yet. And it's got 6 skirmishers and 1 archer for GamesGod. Probably a good approach for going for skirmishers. It would be pretty important against the general's archers, which might become crossbowmen here soon. Yep, crossbowmen's coming in right now. Looks like General Scout escaped safely. And we might see, looks like GamesGod might be getting ready to attack. Let's see. Or is it just gathering his soldiers? Looks like it's just gathering his soldiers, not going out to attack quite yet. The general's catching up on military units, getting bodkin and +1 armor. Yeah, the general's still 1 TC, which makes sense. Kind of going for a really aggressive crossbowman rush. Horse collar coming. Not as important for crossbows, honestly. But I suppose now is not a bad time to get it. Long distance stone mining, that's unfortunate. The general's missing some wood to build that mining camp. We might see mining camp here soon. Nope, Okay. It looks like it was saving up for Bosa. Alright, so here we go. The general's marching out first, actually, instead of GamesGod. Alright, here we go. The Britain's range bonus coming in handy. Scouts down. So, looks like the general with the extra range is able to keep on hitting and running against the skirmishers, and the skirmishers aren't ever getting in range. Oh, one crossbow's down. Yeah, two crossbows down. But right now it's 12 crossbows against 6 skirmishers. But we got the hill for the skirmishers now. And GamesGod going up to Castle Age. Let's see. Figure out what GamesGod is doing with those skirmishers. The split macro is actually by accident, I think. I don't actually intentionally have split macro code added. I think there's a possibility that there's a chance that ranged unit groups will decide to allow multiple targets to be selected. So it'll if it detects that there's enough units in a group in a certain area that it can attack, it'll just do stop micro and let the crossbows attack whatever units they want. But yeah, no split micro. The elevation here is really coming in handy, but Hagon Cavalry still going down though, and still on normal skirmishers here for GamesGod. We got some skirmishers added in here by the general. Lost a monk, unfortunately. I'm not exactly sure why the hit and run micro is not being used right now. It probably has something to do with the skirmishers and crossbows being grouped together into the same control group. I think it tries to wait until one of the skirmishers is like ready to move back, like picking whichever unit has the highest or the slowest attack speed. It's also possible that the general has just decided to stop the attack, which means it disbands all of its control groups. That's probably what happened, actually. Right now, it only uses the control groups for attacking and not for defense. All right, looks like it's going to attack again. Relic coming in for the general. Will be the third one. Yeah, we got one relic for GamesGod. The general has looks like a 13 villager lead right now on 2 TCs. Probably a bit late to get the... oh, there's the third TC. Alright, got a conversion in. Looks like GamesGod's adding militia. Might want to get mad at arms first. Converted to crossbow. Yeah, so the macro is not perfect, but it's, I think, doing a better job than if there was no macro at all. No, killed a monk. Let's see. Nice. Whoa, yeah, there we go. It's actually kind of rare that I get to see the General's Mangonel macro in action. It's not very good, actually. It's just... it's the same sort of macro as, like, Archer macro. So just, it doesn't have any tech round. So it's literally just trying to target the best unit. And doesn't have any hits in round as far as I remember. But at the very least it has good, like, intelligence on which targets to attack. Alright, so Imperial Age coming for the General. I think it's trying to retreat to defend for the saving up for Imperial Age, try to defend itself. We got a defensive castle, which is not in a great spot right now, but might be safe. We also have a watchtower that's going right next to it. So right now, GamesGod's taking advantage of the General being defensive. We got a couple conversions here. I would not want to be one of those villagers in real life. I was looking at the chat here. The approximate elo, I think, is of the best AIs, non-cheating AIs, is probably about 1,200. If someone else in the chat is able to put the link for AI, there's a website that was created by one of the people in our community, named the Night Panda, who made an AI database that shows what we estimate to be the elo of each AI. So if someone can, like, put the link to that website in the chat, that'd be nice. That's the place that I go to. I think, if I remember right, Immortal is estimated to be around 1,200 elo. And unfortunately, both Immortal and Rehoboam are not in this tournament, which are usually considered the top two AIs. But definitely leaves room for other AI scripts to be able to come on top in this tournament. But we won't be able to see top AIs in action, unfortunately. Those, I think, Immortal needed some more time to get some updates in, and the Riobome is not really made for Arena. So, looking back at this game, the General seems to have the advantage here with Imperial Age. But one thing that the General does is it turns off its micro, and most of its micro in Imperial Age just because of the number of units. Mostly just because its micro needs a bit more improvement to be effective with a huge number of units. In most cases, just using the standard TSA micro works out pretty well for Imperial Age. So we got some, looks like Arbalesters with full upgrades, except maybe the less unique tech. So it looks like we're adding in some Halberdiers to defend the Arbalists, and adding in some longbows as well. Got a castle from GamesGod, but a lot of rams coming from the General. And we got to see some White Feather Guards in action. Still no elite upgrade for the General. No elite upgrade and no Imperial. I guess Yeoman's the Castle Age tech now. But at this point, might not be needed that much. But the General definitely needs a bit more siege right now. It's lost most of its siege. The Heguang Cavalry don't have a lot of HP, but they do have a lot of armor. Alright, Blast Furnace coming in for the Halberdiers. Alright, one of the rams has reached the castle, but this one might knock it down. Alright, got some trebuchets for the General. Yeah, looks like the castle is going down. GamesGod still has about the same amount of pop as the General, so it's definitely not dead yet. And in fact actually has a positive KD against the General. So that just shows the power of still having good range. Oh, that was a nice mangonel shot. The advantage of having some good ranged micro, I think, is probably what the main thing that's... Another nice mangonel shot. Mangonel is killing off all of those skirmishers. That just shows you how important it is for AIs to have ranged micro to be able to kill off units efficiently, just like a human player. Alright, Elite Longbowman coming in for the General. And a bunch of villagers going to try and build that mining camp, but it's going to get knocked down soon. And a bunch of villagers. If there's a bunch of longbows here, they could definitely like snipe some of these villagers off here. But a lot of them just have nowhere to go. Got another castle coming down from the general. Alright, do castle in this town center. Nope, right here. Nope. It kind of looks like GamesGod likes to, at this point, it's trying to build new buildings with all of its villagers. Which, when you're trying to recover like this, is actually pretty smart. The GamesGod might not be winning one of these games, but it's probably one of the most resilient and adaptable AIs out there. Probably one of the strongest AIs out there for like any kind of like water map or like non-standard map. Because it's intentionally been made to be strong as possible on as many maps as possible. So it might not be the strongest on any map, but it always has like the extra code to deal with situations that most other guys might not be able to deal with. Alright, now it's just a matter of killing off villagers, I think. So I think I'm going to end the game here. Oh, let's just see this mangonel in action. Might be able to kill off the rest of the skirmishers. Or maybe I'll just get killed by the skirmishers themselves. Alright. Yeah, so these skirmishers are just gonna get killed by the longbowmen instead. Alright, that's GG. Alright, just take a look at the stats here quickly. So, I think this is probably when we had the general attacking first, or maybe this is when the GamesGod was actually putting the general on the defensive. Alright, then economy. Always slightly had, but just had the general had a slightly better boom. And then back to the game. Go through these scores quickly. Alright, so the general won game 1. Now I gotta take a look at how these AIs do on Arena. The general, since I made him, I know he goes Burgundians on Arena. And then GamesGod is random again. Alright, and we got Incas for GamesGod. Probably middle of the road, maybe slightly above average on Arena. I'm actually not the best judge of Arena civs. Alright, so let's switch over to Capture Age. Meanwhile, I know that Burgundians is like one of the S-tier Arena civs. So, maybe this is not a fair civ matchup. So for this tournament, I added a new strategy just for Burgundians. I could probably adapt it to other civilizations as well, but only tested on Burgundians and only enabled it for Burgundians. It has some micro that I kind of enjoy, but it's still rather simple. Alright, so GamesGod went for early loom. For Arena, I think it's actually a bad move, but I think GamesGod is probably not spending too much time focusing on Arena and just more beige to play maps in general. And getting a loom early is always a safe option, but I actually made it less of a priority for the general, especially on Arena. I think it delays it until after going up to Castle Age. Unless maybe if it's under attack, then I'll research them. I think there's code for that. Yeah, so you can see the disadvantage of like building a lumber camp near the closest forest to the TC, like the closest forest tile. It's just not in a good spot at all. I think it also favors the to the right of the trees rather than to the left. Like down to the right is kind of where it favors building drop sites. Alright, so we got I think the second boar coming in. Yeah, for the general. And so it's a deer arena, so GamesGod is pushing in deer. I think the general should be doing the same if it hasn't already done so. Okay, there we go. I think it might be. We'll see. I think general will eventually go and start pushing in deer. It might decide to wait until the board is almost empty and then start pushing them in. That way you don't have as much deer rotting, or like meats rotting next to the TC. It's also possible I might have disabled deer pushing on Arena and then forgot to turn it back on. Like I turned off a lot of DC on Arena just because the walls can kind of mess it up. I think I did turn off deer pushing actually. I think maybe in a previous version of Arena that we played on, sometimes the deer could be outside the gates, and decided not to figure out how to push deer inside the gates. So maybe we'll see the general mill the deer at some point, but I think it'll be going without deer, unfortunately. Alright, GamesGod's villagers going for forage bushes, and the general doing the same. Alright, Feudal Age coming for the GamesGod. Might see it go for something aggressive, we'll see. Okay, there's a deer mill for the general. I'm not sure if it's the 100 wood for the mill is worth it for the extra 3 deer. It's probably worth it more than not getting the deer at all. But that's a lot of wood to get the additional 420 food. Alright, gold mining camp in the back. Just 2 villagers on gold right now, so not a big commitment. It's probably just the gold to get up to Castle Age. Meanwhile, GamesGod has 5 on gold, it looks like. And we got a defensive tower right in front of the gate. At least it's not outside the gate. I'm trying to think if the AI scripters community has ever done a Fortress AI tournament. We probably have at one point, but it's been a while. But I think in that... It's been forever since I played Fortress. I think you get towers as part of the... Maybe it's just a castle. I'm kind of ashamed how much I've forgotten about like Fortress starts. But especially since like half the time when you play Fortress, you're playing Regicide. But that's another thing. I don't know if we've ever had a Regicide AI tournament. That's probably something to think about. So, GamesGod bound to 3 gold miners. The barracks and blacksmith still needs another building. Okay, there's a market. But pretty soon it has the resources to go up to Castle Age. Meanwhile, the general is already going up to Castle Age, has a stable and blacksmith. So as far as I know, no other AI actually goes for the particular strategy that the general is going for right now. So... And it's not a particularly unique strategy, I think. It's just like not a lot of AIs actually go for it. I see the question about whether the general ever decides to go for the button. I know the answer to that, but I'll leave that a mystery. Alright, so the general's adding some scouts. Alright, scouts going forward. The scouts kind of running around, killing off crocodiles. Nothing else to do. And go right past the scout. Oh well. Alright, so General's got 5 scouts. Now they're light cav. GamesGod is still in feudal age. Getting close to the number of villagers it needs to go up to Castle Age, but still missing some gold. Okay, there's Castle Age. Looks like the GamesGod actually has some new cans of villager training and go up to Castle Age, which is nice. So the general's still kind of wandering around with his scouts. Alright, 3rd TC for the general. Getting husbandry. And a monk. That's actually the 2nd monk the general's gotten. Alright, there we go. Finally killed off the scout. Alright, so we got a bunch of Eagle Scouts and a Spearman for the GamesGod. And not quite enough resources to get Eagle Warrior, but I'm sure that'll be pretty soon. Bosa for GamesGod. And General going for a 4th TC outside the walls. A bit risky. But already got 2 relics. And looks like GamesGod's going forward. Oh, maybe not. Maybe just another like case of the GamesGod regrouping its units. Alright, the monks got that relic. Lycav seem to be going back home. Yep, so General's got all 5 relics. Or it will be. Let's see, which monk is going to win? Maybe this monk on the left. Ah, that villager's slowing this one down. Yep, left one. Alright, Cavalier coming in for the General and Wheelbarrow. Might be a bit late for Wheelbarrow. Yeah, that's quite late actually. And abundance of gold for the General. Just now getting a market, so it can even that out, I think. Just realized the score names are not correct here. Switch those back. Alright, so we got our first action of the game. Looks like GamesGod's going for some forward towers. And still doesn't have Eagle Warrior. The General's got Cavalier and Light Cav with +1 armor, but otherwise no upgrades. Alright, first battle of the game. Alright, there we go. Got a conversion. Second conversion, it looks like. For some reason in Capture it's just harder to select units. It seems like you have to be a lot more precise than in the actual game. So we got the General going up to Imperial Age, ahead by 30 villagers. Let's see, I'm hearing... Okay, we got another Eagle Scout converted. A monk killed, unfortunately, but these towers might be going down. Alright. Castle outside the walls for the General. So... let's see what the General goes for here. Might be another conversion here soon. There we go. Alright. GamesGod going for an attack. Still doesn't have Castle Age upgrades, it looks like, except for the +2 armor. Okay, finally got Pikeman. But no Eagle Warrior for GamesGod. And GamesGod never went above 2 TCs. Ah, got a little extra forage bushes here in the back. But got the battle up here. Yeah, the General's Castle is right here, and GamesGod didn't get out of the way. So got a Siege Workshop, Archer range, the +4 armor. We got some more forward towers coming in from GamesGod, but it won't take that much to knock them down. Looks like the General's adding Goustier. So got second castle coming up for the General. Yeah, looks like the General's adding hand cannoneers. Knocking down the rams with villager micro. GamesGod's adding longswordsman. Still find it strange that he's never researched Eagle Warrior. So I think, or wait, no. So we did get Eagle Warrior, never mind. Just from that angle, it looked like the Eagle Scout. Alright, so the General has a lead upgrade, and again, the +4 attack. It's probably around time for the General to start attacking here. Almost fully, almost pop capped here. Alright, looks like the attack has started. GamesGod's getting crossbowmen. And here's a big fight, maybe the final battle. And looks like all the units are storming in now with the open gate. Alright, the gate is down. And GamesGod now has more military than economy, and the military is all stuck in buildings. Once this TC is destroyed, I'll call the game. And there we go. GG. And then back to the game stats.